Yeah. Oh, I guess more people come. Will? Yeah, Will. Hey, Will. Hi, Deanne. Deanna? Deanne?
It's Diane.
Diane, hi. How you doing, Diane?
Fine, thanks. I'm here with my husband, Gilbert.
Gilbert, hi. Welcome.
He's going to be on the screen.
I'm going to get it there in a minute. Exit full screen. Okay. References. Okay, displays. Okay.
Can you interact with this? Or yeah.
Yeah. I put your presentation on our TV screen.
Oh, good. Good. Oh, good. I guess you can see this list of participants.
Uh,
I was just kind of curious what you could see on my screen.
I can see that there are 7. I can't see who
Oh,
they
okay.
are.
You see that? Yeah, I'm just. I'll get this off. So every time someone comes in, I have to admit them in. I'm just.
Right.
It's about 10 o'clock, so looks like I'm going to go ahead and give a start. There might be little interruptions where I have to let somebody in, but we can go on. I think I have Jim Jones. Jim Jones, were you able to get on?
Using your camera on your computer, man.
I can't tell if he got on or not.
My camera's turned off.
And
If you were, it would be.
hi, everyone. My name is Michael Fortner. I'm a planner with the city of Newark. And this is sort of a series of we call them virtual coffee breaks. Their ideas, just a little time during the day where we'll have these sessions. We have 5 of these scheduled. We'll probably schedule some more. And the idea is I'll give a little presentation on the comp plan, some different kind of issues that we're working on. The comp plan was done in 2016, is our 5th edition of it. We generally do these about every 10 years. Excuse me. And so what we're doing so it was about 5 years ago, and what we're doing is we're doing a review of the comp plan. We're looking at the goals and the action items, and we are we're doing an evaluation, seeing what still applies, look at what we've achieved, what we've accomplished with the comp plan so far, and maybe given changing conditions, are there amendments or changes to the comp plan we'd like to make at this time? And we have the Planning Commission oversees this, but they appointed somebody in. They've established a steering committee that is meeting monthly. They meet usually the habit is about the last Thursday of the month at around 7 o'clock, and these are posted and on currently virtual. And so we want to do a lot of kind of just general outreach. It's a little bit challenging right now with the pandemic, so we're kind of forced on these virtual ones for now. Nice thing about virtual ones, they are simple to go to, but it's hard to get the same kind of interaction. But we hope to kind of achieve this here. I'm going to speak for about maybe 20 minutes. This thing's scheduled for an hour, and after that, it's really just sort of a discussion. I just want to we just want to listen to you. Several of the committee members are on in this Zoom meeting, and we're just going to kind of listen to kind of what your thoughts are on the kind of issues in the city, how you see things that are going. And this meeting is being recorded, and it'll be part of the public record. And the comments that you give will be given to the steering committee for their consideration as they continue to discuss this over the course of the rest of the spring into the summer. I'm going to go ahead and go to the first slide. So again, what we're going to call it, this is the 5-year review. When we complete the review, the new edition of the plan will be called Plan 2.0. The comprehensive development plan is located at the link below. It's on the city website. If you go to the planning department portion, you can find comprehensive development plan 5. And also you'll find this document that's shown in the picture here. It's called the Plan for Planning, which was established by the Planning Commission. And it kind of just lays out the groundwork of the process that we want to go through in terms of this update. And it gives approximate schedule and kind of the values that we want to, and the process that we want to do. We want to do, of course, a lot of outreach. We want to reach people that normally participate in this process. One of the things it did is it established a very diverse committee of, again, people that aren't necessarily always been involved in this in the past, and reaching out into different residential areas. And so, that's kind of what we want to do during this this kind of short process. It's not, again, it's not a big rewrite of this comp plan. It's just sort of an updating of this this comp plan. Okay, I'm having a little trouble. Let me get to this. All right. So a comprehensive development plan covers a lot of things. Of course, its primary thing is, you know, land development. How land development will determine our future and how things will continue development. But it integrates a lot of components of land development, which includes transportation, infrastructure, economic development, parks and open space, of course, annexation, how the city grows, how we take land that's adjacent to the city, and sometimes they want to come in and be a part of the municipal boundary, and how we do that. It also covers housing, including affordable housing, having enough housing, different types of housing. And of course, environmental quality, sustainability is also an aspect that this does. I'd like to talk a little bit about why we plan, why we do this. It establishes a shared vision that this process brings people together, and it allows people to kind of discuss how they see the future of Newark, what they want Newark to be. It gives guidance to property owners, landowners, and developers. So developers look at this guide, this plan, and it helps them determine what kind of developments will be feasible. They can call if they see a property, you know, we would like to do this type of development there. We can look at the comp plan, we can look at the zoning, and we can give them guidance about how feasible that project is. It also, again, it's a chance for us to do outreach to the community, get a broad array of input. It also coordinates local decision-making with the counties and the state, but also with our local departments, like Public Works, Parks and Recreation. It allows us to kind of coordinate about these things as well. And then finally, it's building an informed constituency. These things are an opportunity. Let me just get these two people in, admit. All right, and take that off. Hi, so we have some new people. Welcome. Just started the presentation. We're on why we plan. Building an informed constituency. This is part of an education process, sharing different planning theory, planning ideas, the rationale behind making planning decisions. So when we developed this comp plan 5 years ago, part of it was kind of a visioning, and we did a resident survey that went out to there's a person there. Hi, welcome. I think Jay. We did a resident survey, and previous comp plans, they acknowledged the University of Delaware, but there wasn't a lot about the University of Delaware or that Newark was a college town. And through a lot of kind of focus groups and discussion that we had, you know, Newark is recognized really as a college town. Some people outside of Newark would, if you ask them about Newark, it's probably the first association they're going to have with Newark in this area. It's a college town. And it's part of this, the Plan 5 is, I think, is we more embrace that idea that a college town is something that makes Newark a unique place in this state, in this region. And there's a lot of qualities that a college town have, like, for example, and I've listed below, they're youthful places. You know, over half our population is, you know, under the age of 24. The residents of Newark tend to be very highly educated, also comparatively affluent. They live well, but they also manage well. When we have, for example, the bubble burst in 2008 with a lot of housing, you know, Newark residents were more conservative in how when they do mortgages, tended to be with more fixed rate, long-term mortgages. And so we didn't have that kind of large scale housing crisis that we had in a lot of places. College towns also tend to be a very popular place to retire because there are lots of different kind of activities that people that are in retirement like to go to, including football games, lots of arts things to go to. College towns tend to be cauldrons of creativity. They're very creative places. They tend to be progressive places and free-spirited. And so these are kind of the associations and characteristics of college towns that, again, all apply to Newark and make Newark kind of a unique place to live. And so with this comprehensive plan, we've kind of embraced that. But also, Newark is also a hometown. And so it's a place where people have grown up. It's a place where my kids are growing up. A lot of adults that live here have grown up here. And so we want to embrace that too. So it's that sort of that relationship. It's a hometown and it's a college town. When we, in the survey, we had this open question, what do you like most about living in Newark? And the number one answer was really just the phrase college town or something kind of associated with college town. But it is something that our residents recognize. This is a college town, and the fact that it's a college town makes it a neat place to live. When you ask them, what do you like least about living in Newark? You might get a college town, but it's usually some sort of, they usually list some sort of negative externality associated with being a college town, maybe bad behavior of students, loud parties that you might get. Also, all kinds of negative externalities that are associated with being in a college town. But for the most part, Newark residents like the fact that Newark is a college town. So it's both a college town and a hometown, which is part of the branding and that we kind of recognize in our plan now. And it leads to, we go in that. I just make sure I didn't skip something there. And it leads to the vision of the city of Newark. And for that, we were inspired by the University of Delaware's Complete Communities Toolbox. And again, this is available online at this website. They've done a lot of research on what makes like a fully functioning community. And so the 5 key elements that they've identified are complete streets. That's a planning term, but it means that streets aren't necessarily just designed for getting automobiles through a place efficiency. That complete streets also are part of a complete transportation network that includes pedestrians and bicyclists and transit. And so you design streets that accommodate all of those types of uses, not just getting cars through quickly. An element is also effective use of land, which often means doing a mixed use of mixed use, either like a downtown zoning or just sort of not necessarily what they call separating the zoning districts, where in a suburban area where you might have a commercial area and all that's there is commercial restaurants and shops, like a mall area, and then another area in a different location with just single family housing, and then another area where it's just like office buildings. It envisions more of a mix of those uses in a town, so that it makes it more, again, more walkable, that you don't have to travel very far just to get a gallon of milk. So that's the kind of efficiency that they're looking at. Healthy and livable. That there's places where people can have recreation and running and jogging, walking their dog. Inclusive and active. Again, that is, it's a community that can be designed for all people. So seniors, kids, college students, that they all have different needs in the way the town is developed. And so you want to be able to develop in a way that, like a kid, this could be a good place for a kid to grow up, where they could ride their bike, parks to visit, or seniors, that there's activities for them. Or different types of income and housing, for lower income, that there's access to transit so they can get to jobs. And so a complete community would have all those elements. And then finally, sustainability. And that is that we live we design a community that enables people to live in a sustainable lifestyle where they're able to walk and ride their bikes to places, not always have to be dependent on cars, perhaps access to transit as well. And so through that, we established through, again, surveys and some focus groups, our vision. And the vision has three elements: is a healthy and active community. Newark wants to be a sustainable community. And three, Newark wants to be an inclusive community. And through under each of those are just sort of elements, not a complete list of elements, but some elements that we associate that with that. So for example, healthy and active community, you want to be bicycle and pedestrian friendly. Now, these have a lot of crossover effects. So in a sustainable community, you want to have transit and alternative transportation options that make it not only just a healthy place, but also makes it sustainable if you have these things. If people can ride their bike, they can live a sustainable lifestyle and a healthy lifestyle. And if people can walk and take transit and ride their bikes, you also have an inclusive community. That means that people of different income levels can function well here. Seniors, maybe that have trouble driving, they would have access to transit or be in walkable distance to businesses and medical services that they need. And so that was a community. This was our first plan that actually developed a kind of a vision statement like this, but those are the kind of the three elements of our vision statement. Sorry about this. So I'm just going to talk real quick about just a couple of things that we think have been successes about the comprehensive development plan, this fifth one. The first thing that we, not the first thing, but one of the major things that we did was we developed a sustainable Newark plan. And this has four themes in it. It was developed by a committee appointed by council. They worked over a year on it. They had lots of public meetings and they developed this. And so a comprehensive development plan is very broad. It doesn't get into a lot of specifics, but it lays kind of a pathway for us to do further studies and review issues more. And so that's what came out of the sustainability, the comprehensive development plans. We really need a stronger sustainability plan to really get to how we want to meet our sustainability goals, not just say we want to be sustainable, but how are we going to get there? And so the comp plan says we want to be a sustainable community. This sustainable Newark plan says how are we going to get there? This is available on the web. I should have provided a link on this, but this is available on the City of Newark website as well. The four elements is, of course, responding to climate change, which we get into green energy. And the city has some very progressive green energy goals about getting off of fossil fuels and getting to 100% renewables. Planning for all, which is like, is basically a planning component, which is doing our land use in a way that people can live sustainable lifestyles through walking and bicycling and taking transit. Building green buildings. And theme 4 is preserving the natural environment. Another big thing that the comprehensive development plan made in terms of an action item is to develop a transportation improvement district. And the transportation improvement district, and it's in your corner here is, and I don't know how well you can see that, but this red thing, that's the boundaries, and it also includes all these arterial lanes that are coming into it. Is basically looking at land development 20, 30 years ahead, and then planning our land use and our transportation, coordinating those two. Often the way we do things is historically is, a new development comes about, they do a transportation study, they decide some certain structures are either needed or not, and then it's built. And then another development happens, and maybe it's a small development, maybe they decide they don't need anything additional from that. And then another building is built, and then another building. And then all of a sudden another building is built, and all of a sudden the transportation network that is there no longer needs to be significantly upgraded with all this new development. And then that developer might be on the hook for all that. So what this does is we really took a hard look at the development in Newark plan for 5, 10, 15 years, 20 years into the future. uh, where we think the development is going. And then it provides a fund for, it creates first it creates a model of what kind of transportation amenities we're going to need in the city. And then it creates a fund to all the developers, no matter how big or small, will pay into that system, and then and provide funding for these new transportation amenities to make Newark its transportation network work effectively. And so finally, one of the things, land development, and this is the most tedious part of the comprehensive development plan. Every parcel gets assigned a future land use, and there's certain developments, certain principles that we want to focus on: infill development rather than necessarily expansion or doing greenfield developments, redeveloping sites that are underutilized that could be more effectively used. It makes a lot of sense because the infrastructure is already there. You don't have to build new roads and new piping to reach that. It's already within the city infrastructure. So it's a very efficient use of land. It also encourages walkability, density within the town core. We want to provide appropriate areas for businesses and industry, complement the existing transportation network, and then encourage high standards for new development, and also a mix of housing choices are all kind of components of that. And so we have a list of different kinds of the land uses, and that's where it gets kind of complicated about the land use designation and the zoning code. And this is different in zoning code, but they have to be in collaboration. They have to, I'm losing the word that I need there, but they have to be aligned. And so it's not an easy place to just be 20 years, we'd like to a certain parcel, maybe it's a residential parcel, but maybe it'd be a good place for mixed use development in the future. Well, if you wouldn't want to change the future land use category at that, because then you'd have to change the zoning and give it from residential to the kind of a mixed use zoning. And so that causes different issues. So it's a little hard to use this map to plan future development, especially when it comes to change. And so one of the ways, and now I'm getting more into some of the strategic issues that the sustainability group is, the steering committee is dealing with, is, amendments. And one of the ideas is to create focus areas. And so if you follow Newark development, you'll notice a lot of times there's a comp plan amendment associated with new developments. And that is the reason I described. It was a property that was, maybe it was low density residential. It had a single family house on it, but it's in an area that's zoned RM, or has a lot of density that's growing around it. And so a developer comes to purchase that and wants to redevelop it maybe to a multifamily housing. And this creates as a comp plan amendment is what we call it. And so the comp plan amendment is to change the land use designation from low density residential to high density residential. A good example of this is in this area right here. You see a dark yellow, and that's high density residential areas. And then you see this lighter yellow, and that's low density residential. These are usually older homes, and a lot of these are being purchased, and they're already rental homes, but the developer would like to do an increased density, use an RM type of zoning or even an RA zoning to make it a multi-family place. And so it involves a comp plan amendment. And so sometimes I think the public gets this idea that we're always just changing the plan, but really these types of developments are really just focused in certain areas of the town. Most of town's comp plan designation is fairly set and not feasible for really changing. But there are certain areas where there is a lot of activity going on, type of redevelopment, where people want to, again, usually create more density or transition from a residential to a commercial or a mixed use area. And so rather than changing the comp plan designation, again, which would cause us to change the zoning, we're proposing creating what we call text amendments, creating focus areas and giving guidance in the text where we we talk about the development in that area and how we'd like to see that area develop in the future. The developer would still have to go through the process and get a comp plan change to the designation, their parcel, and also and a lot of times a zoning change as well. And this would all go through the council process. But this would give council, it would give the public some guidance, and of course developers guidance to how those areas, we see those areas developing. Because there's a lot of agreement of where we want to see this kind of growth. Again, as probably all of you are aware, a lot of the growth is accommodates student housing, and the student housing, again, they're multifamily. Student housing is focused around the university area. We think that's a logical place for it because it enables people, students, to walk, not having to drive. They can live in Newark rather than commuting from outside of the city. And so we think there's a lot of benefits to having areas where the students can live in multifamily around the university. This also has the benefit of getting the students out of the outlying residential areas. Some of the neighborhoods like Fairfield, Oaklands, if they have places closer to campus where they can live, then they're more likely to live there rather than living in the outskirts in single family housing that we hope goes more to family rentals and affordable rentals for modest income families that can live there, either rent or home ownership opportunities. And so we think it has that benefit as well. And so we're exploring this sort of text amendment to kind of give more guidance in our plan. Another big strategic issue is an annexation. We recently, this past in 2020, I guess, we had a proposal to annex in the northern part of the city. In this map right here, you see the city boundary in the tan, and then you see some red areas, and those are areas that we designated as possible areas for annexation. And we didn't have anything up here at first, but we are getting a lot of interest in this northern pocket of outside of the city that is adjacent. And we had these two parcels, after a lot of public discussion, got annexed, or three parcels rather, got annexed in for a small housing development of about 10 houses. And then this is a farm, and this is later this month, council is going to look into annexing this farm. It's a single family house, and they have a horse farm on it. Some of the benefits of it, of course, sewer and water, but and applying for electric. So with that, we developed a plan to do a broader planning area. We just don't want to just do, when we create planning areas, we just don't want to do it piecemeal. And so we looked at this whole area, and a lot of this area, in this area here, is areas where we determined that there could be future interest in annexing in and redeveloping. There's certainly a blank parcel right here that is zone commercial that is most certainly would be a good candidate to come into the city if they decide to redevelop into a commercial area. Some of these things probably wouldn't come in for a long time. A gas station, they're already developed, so they probably won't come in. Some of these larger lots with, sometimes it has a large lot with a kind of a small house on it. Some of those may be interested in coming in at some point in the future. And also there's a lot of there's need as we annex up there, there's the ability of those parcels that they're all on sewer and septic, and well, that they could tap into the city's resources and get our sewer and our water. And that is that's kind of the overview of some of the issues that we're dealing with in the comp plan and how it applies to those issues. And that concludes the presentation. And for the rest of this, I'd just like to open it up, and really it's just sort of I'm interested in your thoughts. And again, this meeting is being recorded, and this will be transcribed and given to the steering committee. And of course, a lot of the committee is online. They'll be able to hear you talk, but I'd just like to open it up. So go ahead and chime in or raise your hand or what have you. I'm going to take off. Well, I won't take this off, but I'm going to stop sharing, but I can go back just so I can see more of a thing. Does anyone like to start off, or any committee member like to say something? Say Jay, or you can type in the comments. You can type in that too if you're more comfortable doing that.
Mike, this is Carl Kadar.
Hey, Carl.
Six Planning Commission. I believe there are already a couple of questions on the chat line. You might
Oh,
want
sure. Here we go. Yes.
to take a look.
So first, are you going to track names? And okay, that's Nancy. So yes, I am trying to keep names. I do see one person on an iPhone, and I was wondering if the person on the iPhone could introduce themselves.
Hi, this is Lynn Anderson. I am on an iPhone.
Lynn Anderson. Hi, thank you, Lynn, for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Are you a city resident or are you?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Stone Spring. Yep.
So, okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Well, I see represents publics or special. So I think most people I see are here are Brandon. Hi, Brandon. Can you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Brandon Halbeck. I'm actually a Newark resident, but also a reporter with the News Journal. Just wanted to listen in and
Oh, okay.
see what everyone was discussing. But thank you for your presentation and for having me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming. I see Jean on the line. Could you introduce yourself, Jean? You're on mute if you can. So Jean might not be able to have a mic or might not be able to, but in terms of special interest, I don't see anyone there. There's several other people on here that are committee members. I see a council person on the line, but no, I would say special interests are on. They're all residents. And these are meant to be small group discussions. I see is report about development area around 7 available. The report about developing area around 7 available. Well, there was an initial council report on plan area 7 when we were proposing the large one. I can certainly make that available. I mean, that was handed out to council. That was pre-you, I think. And I can certainly get you those kinds of things, Jay.
Yeah, that's fine. Just a second offline sometimes. Great. Thank
Certainly.
you.
And then it is very hard to see the map details. Yes, I'm sorry. Nancy, what do you want to talk about? What I could try to give you more detail on the things that the map, the comp plan is available online. Sometimes some of these maps are from the comp plan, but if there's something I could try to go more detail in, I was just giving. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to talk and meet with everybody. It was just the last section where you were talking about annexation and there was sort of all of a sudden a broad area was highlighted and I wasn't sure exactly where it is. I will be looking at the maps and looking at more of your presentation materials after this meeting, so I'm sure I could find it. I was just pointing out how tiny.
Yeah.
It wasn't. Yeah, that's the map. Yeah. So
this map. So
I can't even tell where that is exactly from the.
So it's do you see my little pointer?
I do.
Okay. So plan area 7 is this right here, and this was recently added in the city. This plan area 7. But it's just this little small one, which is more. It must be the next one up now. Okay, and that's shown right here in the kind of this darker yellow. And this was added as plan area 7. And it was added piecemeal. Council just wanted to focus on the application before them, and they didn't want to consider a whole entire broader view. And so for this, we're maybe considering doing this, adding this area, which includes, of course, that area, but also includes the surrounding parcels. And this is all in the northern section, just past Woods of Levere.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely be looking at that area because I believe then this whole entire planning area 7 was all related to one owner or one specific land use project. So that's very interesting.
Well, this one is not the other one. This one has multiple owners. This one, it has one order because the council wanted just to consider the, oh, someone's coming in here, Sasha. Someone would just want to consider, so they had this parcel, they acquired these to do a development, and that helped them connect the farm. And there is some interest on some other ones of just connecting to our sewer and water, because the city sewer will come along here, and then these properties will be eligible to connect. They don't have to annex to connect. They can just connect to our sewer now, but they can also
So
annex.
we have we have a project to expand our sewer lines and water lines currently, or they already exist?
So they already exist. So where you see them, I think this is the municipal boundary, so they exist here. And so when this new development comes in, the developer will pay to extend this line up into here, and then this property will pay to connect to this development right here. And then it makes these properties eligible to connect in as well.
Mhm.
But that's always done
So,
private developer, not the city doesn't necessarily pay for those.
well, but it is city sewer, so usually that's who pays, but with new construction, I guess the only way they could get the plan recorded was to fund those services. So I didn't know that. I only scanned the news around that whole project development.
Sure.
Well, it makes sense then that once there's some access to those services, the annexation looks a lot more palatable, I guess.
Sure.
Hey, Mike,
Now,
Yeah.
it's Will Hurd.
Will, hi.
Hi, two things to just want to mention. I think one to Jay's point, he may also be referring to the state strategies for spending report, which
Okay.
was part of what drove the boundaries and the areas for the planning area. And then the other comments just to Nancy, one of the requirements of the state law for, I'm pretty sure it's state law for annexation, is that we have to have defined an area, a planning area in the comp plan before we can consider annexation requests. So we had basically not defined an area to the north of the city in the last comp plan. And then we got an annexation request in an area that we didn't have a planning area. So the first thing we had to do was define a planning area. And we defined it big, and council wanted it basically just as big as it needed to be, which was the properties under consideration for annexation. In at
Oh,
least
thank you,
the
Will.
first round.
Oh, good point, yeah.
so was this area identified on our previous comp plan future growth though? It seems to
No.
me it would have. No? Okay.
No, and it wasn't the previous one before that, not either. And really, I think it was a mistake. I mean, I really should have looked at that area, given that area more study. But since it wasn't, the state encouraged me to shrink the planning areas because they used to be really big all around the city. And we were trying to shrink it to an area where we thought we would annex in the next 5 years is what they want. And there hadn't been any applications up here. And for some reason, well, there's nothing, maybe it's not going, don't need to go up that far, but this is sort of this area here, is sort of a pocket. It's surrounded by state and county park. And so they're kind of separated from a lot of just normal Newcastle County development. So it makes sense in that way.
Well, as far as the state investment document, I would think that because of all the green space, this would be a low projected investment area as far as the state's concerned.
No, actually, it's the opposite. Well, so the parkland is all out of play, but those properties inside that little bubble are level 1 and 2 areas for state investment.
Level 1, 2 are your higher levels. One goes 1 to 4. So 1 would be all the city of Newark is in 1, most municipalities, and then surrounding areas. And then when you get outside the city, a lot of those fall into 2. And then you get 3 and 4, which are really your very low rural or almost very rural land use.
So if this area is 1 and 2, then I imagine there is no level 4 anywhere around Newark. I mean,
Level 4 or maybe level 4, actually, level 4, I get the comp plan. There's no, yeah, level 4.
It obviously doesn't go up to the Maryland line.
They have a
That's all.
thing called, yeah, it doesn't go to the Maryland. Yeah, level 4, or they might have something called out of play, which is even lower than level 4. That's almost everything around
Right.
it's called out of play. And so that's your
Right.
lowest designation. But the private land is usually, most of that's level 2. There might be some level 3 around the Newark area. I only have kind of the Newark and the various immediate surrounding areas. Sometimes I can't pass that. But
So, well, Mike, then the TID, which I have not examined closely, I remember one council person expressing that we don't have to pay for it. And I said, well, state taxpayers certainly do on TIDs, even though I guess maybe locals, it doesn't come on their property tax bill certainly. But so if, as far as the TID, would that naturally just fall into the scope of any annexed area, or is that, I mean, is the TID in planning, I would imagine, or has it been planned for Newark?
the TID is going through a planning process right now, and they meet on the was it the third Wednesday of every month? They meet at about 1:30 usually. And in terms of who pays for it, developers pay a lion's share of the TID. That's the idea of it, is we plan these developments and they pay in. We project the development we'll need in the future, the transportation infrastructure, and then all developers pay their share. Granted, there's still
Well, it's
yeah. Most of them are involved with more state roads, and a lot of roads in Newark are state roads. I mean, the residential streets are mostly city streets. And so that's the idea. So a lot of times developers get off the hook. I mean, if they have a small development, they say, oh, there's nothing new needed for this, so you don't have to pay any kind of new infrastructure. But then you have several new small developments, and all of a sudden you need some new infrastructure. And then this one developer might be on the hook, and that's not necessarily fair or equitable. So this kind of just spreads out the payment burden to all developers.
well, yeah. A lot of the TID, I think, was a solution that rose out of the problem of Newcastle County fixed law for so long of adequate facility and concurrency. And so developers could develop as zoned, but they couldn't develop when they wanted to because of well, school capacity was stricken from planning consideration in maybe I forget, 2005 perhaps, but sewer capacity, road capacity was a stickler for slowing development. So the TID is what people that look at Newcastle County law see as a sort of a circumventing or runaround of our adequate facility concurrency law, in that developers would have to pay a whole ticket for inadequate to mitigate transportation problems or traffic impact around a large plan. If they wanted to do it immediately, they would have to pay the full freight. If they could get the state to put it on the tip and start to fund it, then it was then they would have to contribute much less, if at all. So the problem with the TID in the county level is they were given permission in 2019 to develop up to 2 a year, but they didn't have to tell anybody about it. I imagine your Newark TID meetings are open. The work being done in the county is not open. They have to report every 2 years to council on what their activities are. And the problem also sometimes voiced by the community on TIDs is that this is a 20 to 30 year picture. So you can get development plans in operation that make a contribution to the state for the TID, but there may not be enough money in the kitty to actually do the road mitigation. How many, there's no stipulation as to when it'll actually be done, and it could be done 10 to 20 years after the development is already causing problem impact. So we'll have to see. But Newark didn't have those laws. So Newark's TID is a real separate animal.
Well, and can't speak to the county, but I mean, this is a partnership with the state of Delaware, DelDOT, and all our meetings are open, and we do public workshops, and this is a public process. There's no nothing done secret. And it's meant to be very transparent. And then when we develop this,
Yeah, and
it's meant to be.
I appreciate that. In fact, how do I find the next TID meeting on our website?
Well, you go to our calendar, and it should, I believe it's posted there already. The next one in March. Then the next one here, if I guess one of the person helping with that, Dave Athey, it's March 17th. So 1:30, and that's just a normal committee meeting.
Yeah,
And
no,
Hey,
well,
Mike,
thank you.
it's,
yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It's Dave.
Yeah.
We're actually meeting Wednesday. It's March 10.
oh, okay. So we got moved up March 10th. So if you go to the City of Newark's homepage and you go down, scroll down to the community calendar down below, you go to the Wednesday, you'll find a link to the meeting there, and you can join.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thanks so much. That's really good information. I appreciate that so much.
And thank you, Dave. Yes, you're right. Yeah, it is. All right. All right. Anyone else something to say? Just what do they think? Also, you can give me critique on the presentation. It's hard to read a room when you're giving a Zoom, and so I'm going to be doing about 5 or 6 more of these, and probably add a few. And so.
I guess I have one more comment, which
Okay.
is it seemed, there's it's probably a little bit of rough going right now for Main Street developers because there's been a lot of pushback on parking, and I'm getting a sense with that. I had a sense that the 5-year plan was put in motion to perhaps refigure maybe our BB zoning and other qualifications of what is or isn't preferred as far as our Main Street and parking. Is that, because they're not, the state mandates every 10 years. Here we are doing another 5-year. Maybe it's just something I thought I read in a news account, but are we doing this right now partly because of Main Street?
No, this is just a 5-year. It's just, again, we call it a review. This is different than the 10-year kind of where we do a major rewrite. This is sort of like just sort of looking at, refreshing, making changes, just kind of evaluating midstream the plan. The issues that, and it's true, there's a lot of discussion, especially among council about some of the issues you're talking about, parking and building height and the intensity of the development. That's really not a comp plan thing. The comp plan has that area as mixed use, and I think there's a lot of wide agreement that should be a mixed use area, and it's already designated that. But
isn't the mixed use? Isn't the mixed use BB zoning, business district zoning, or?
That's correct. And so it's more of a zoning issue, what you're talking about, the parking requirements, how we require parking, two parking spaces per unit, and so much for commercial, and also building height. These are all things that are designated in the zoning code. And so what council is discussing now is, does the zoning code need different clarifications, changes to be modernized, give some more thought to, given how things are changing. And so what the comp plan might do is, and I think there is going to be some sort of amendment to look at the zoning districts about how we look at parking. But again, it'll be very general, just giving directions, how we want to look at parking, how we want to think of density. And then that would include a very long process and a complicated process of public meetings about, how we want to change the zoning downtown to get the kind of development we want. It wouldn't be through this process.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, this is
Yeah.
Will. There is one question in the chat
Oh,
about
that's right. I got the chat.
sewer maintenance funding. And then I'll also just add for Nancy's sort of point that 2 years ago, I think it was, the parking subcommittee had done a report of recommendations for changes to the parking primarily in the downtown area. And those recommendations are slowly working their way as well through the system, through zoning and other ordinances. But again, it's the comp plan basically says, there needs to be mixed use and complete streets, and that's sort of where the comp plan works. And then down in the code is where the details are. And the comp plan doesn't get into how does the zoning code how should the zoning code look?
Right.
Thanks, Will. Yeah, I see a comment from Diane. And she writes in the comments, not too long ago, we voted to approve a large spending for upgrading our existing sewer. And more recently, council voted not to annex another parcel planned for residential development. And some of the discussion opposing the annexation focused on the cost of maintaining the new sewer to be constructed. What are the plans for how sewer maintenance funding in area 7? Okay, I thought what you were maybe talking about was the was it we voted was about the what do you call it, referendum that was for the stormwater management. I thought that was more of a stormwater management thing. And I'm not always, it's kind of a public works, the sewer thing, but there was a development that was turned down off of Paper Mill Road. I think that project was called Zero Paper Mill. And that was, I don't remember sewer being a issue so much on that. There are reasons for turning it down. It was one that it was a very treed area and they were concerned about the trees, but also the development and serving it with like trash. And because they were only getting minimal city services at that area. But for planning areas, for you asked about sewer and 7. So the sewer infrastructure, I mean, it goes up to the end of the city. And then where they've just annexed, the developer has to install all the sewer. So there's generally not a cost to the city to install sewer up there. It only benefits once they become sewer customers. So there's a new development plan that was approved up there. It includes 10 houses, and the developer and part of building those houses installs the sewer up there. And then later this month, their council will review another proposal to annex a farm that has a single family house and maybe have another house on there at one point. And that owner will have to connect to the sewer, and they pay for all that themselves, not the city. Did I answer your question, Diane? Or you want to follow up? You're on mute. I don't know if you're trying to talk, or you can type in something if you'd like. Nancy, do you want to say something?
Yeah, just to add that, so typically I scan the Newark Post or something, but I in the council discussion recently, it was talking about perhaps charging for parks. And that's also Newcastle County entertains that once in a while, and people feel strongly that they should be free. But then on the other hand, we are a border state, and this is the border area. So we are getting a lot of people enjoying our parks that aren't paying a dime for them, which is, nearby Pennsylvania, Maryland, probably not New Jersey, but yeah. Mm-hmm. So my concern was in some piece that I thought caught my eye was, is there because I approved that referendum, and I expected to be able to use the amenities on the Hillside Road amenities as a Newark citizen, but it seemed to me there was some discussion that would not be the case, that I would not be able to enjoy that park. Can you speak to that at all?
Sure. So there was a proposal that did get turned down. It was more with the reservoir, and council wasn't. Most of the council wasn't interested in that. Now there is some discussion about that park and off the hillside about perhaps charging for that. I think the concern, and they haven't made a decision on it, but they're going to look at things on that. So there'll be future council meetings.
That will make me, because I approved to pay for that. That will make me extremely angry.
Sure. So the rationale,
that piece of land that I already agreed to pay for, that's crazy for me. So
the concern was, I think the concern is, and why that's being considered or even talked about, is that it's that area is so close to the downtown that you could get like a downtown parking there, and then so they don't have to pay for parking downtown. And then if that was the case, if people did that, then you would have a hard time parking there because the parking spaces would all be full. or might be full. I guess again, that could be in the evening. So maybe they could do something where they just do evening time or, I don't know, but maybe it's not even a problem at all.
Yeah, well, that's, if-
Yeah.
post-
The answer might be, why don't you just not,
okay, thanks for,
if it becomes a problem, you charge for it later. Most of the time when you charge people for parking, it's to encourage turnover. It's to encourage people from not just parking there all day and leaving their car. And so that's what you would want to charge for parking. So if it's not a problem, if turnover is not a problem in that lot, then there's probably no reason to charge for it, in my view. It's up to council. But if there is something where people seem to park there, university students, because it's free, then you might have to look at something where, how do you regulate that parking so that people like you can go there and use it to use the park, but someone's not going to park there so they can go to downtown.
maybe some kind of, sticker, the resident sticker or something like that.
Maybe, yeah, something like that. That could be a thing. But I think, first of all, you see if it's a problem. I mean, it's far enough from downtown. Where I don't know that people are going to do that often. I don't know. So maybe you try it.
No.
If there's a problem, you do it. See a couple.
Yeah, I mean, I could say, honestly, I've parked in Deer Park a couple times and walked down Main Street. We know that the Newark Shopping Center has it the reverse, that people
Yeah.
will park, walk on, so.
Okay. I see Dan
I
Dan had a
understand the
comment.
concern, I appreciate it.
Oh, sure. Dan, I was wondering how long-term maintenance was going to be funded once the new sewers were constructed. I'm not a real expert on that, but I think in terms of maintenance, it becomes part of the city's network. So when you pay your sewer bills, part of what you're paying for is the maintenance of the line. So when you extend it to those houses, they're going to be paying monthly sewer bills. And through the monthly sewer bills, cities would get funding to maintain the sewer lines when there's any repairs that need to be made. That's the best I understand that. Jay said, "Yep, the commuters will park there." So that's Jay Bancroft is a council person, and he's part of that discussion. And so I think there's concerns that students may use it to park there and walk to class because it's free. They don't have to buy the monthly sticker. So they're looking at, I don't know, they're looking to charge some or looking for some way to be able to regulate that parking to make sure it's available to just regular park users, not to downtown users and University of Delaware users. All right.
That's another thing we'll have to work with U of D on for sure, right? How to deal with their parking problems and housing. Thanks.
Certainly. Thanks, Jay. We're about at the 11 o'clock hour, and I forgot to put my email address. It's I'm Mike Fortner. You can get my email address at the city of website, Newark website. I'll put it in future, but it's basically mfortner@newark.d.us. But you can certainly email me with any comments, and I can make that part of the record. Or if you think of something, you want to come to another one of these workshops, again, we have them planned at various times this week, and we'll probably add some dates. And we have one next week at a 7 o'clock one, and I'll be doing other kinds of outreach like this. And I invite you to come back. Presentation may be the same, might be a little different. Who knows? Again, so with that, I think I'd like to adjourn, and thank you all for coming. Okay.
Thanks, Mike, appreciate it.
You bet.